My name is Professor Amitabh Bhattacharya, and I'm going to be your dean for the next 2 years. Why don't we introduce ourselves?
I'm Rajiv, and I'm from T.I.M.E.
I'm Shipra, and I'm from T.I.M.E. Kashmira from T.I.M.E. as well.
T.I.M.E.
Okay. How many of you are from T.I.M.E?
Common Admission Test or CAT is an entrance test conducted by IIMs for management programs of all IIMs. The CAT is also adopted by other top B schools like the MDI Gurgaon, T.I.M.E Management Institute Manipal, etc. Through CAT, a candidate is analyzed both through quantitative and verbal fundamentals. Let's know more about it from our expert.
When one looks at CAT 2007, the cutoff marks overall for that paper, this paper was for 300 marks. There were 75 questions worth 4 marks each. The total marks were about 300. The cutoff to get one IIM call was around 98 marks, which is about roughly 1/3 the paper. Not all sections of CAT will have a uniform way of preparation. For example, when one looks at the quantitative section, one needs to be able to understand the basic concepts across various chapters like LCM, HCF, and as I mentioned earlier, time and work, time and distance, percentages, profit and loss, which basically means revisiting your school syllabus of the 8th, 9th and 10th standard. CAT asks you questions which are tricky in nature. They are not difficult, they are tricky in nature, and somebody who is not very comfortable with the concepts will find that understanding those questions is a little tricky. So one needs to have a very, very good grasp on the basic concepts. If one does have a grasp on the concepts, the quantitative section becomes easier. So the grounding for one to do well in quant is to do very well in terms of concepts, which means you have to revise concepts and ensure that they are at the back of your mind. And that is for starters for a section like quant. When one looks at the verbal section has 2 parts. One is the verbal aptitude and the second is your reading comprehension. In verbal aptitude, you are tested on your vocabulary, on your reading habits, fill in the blanks kind of questions, questions on grammar. Again, if somebody knows the elementary rules of grammar, ones that we have done in our 8th, 9th and 10th standard, it will help us prepare very well for that particular area. The reading comprehension section or the reading comprehension area is one which is slightly tricky because CAT asks passages which are based on abstract, which are based on philosophy, sociology, psychology, things that students have not really read with a lot of interest. So when such passages are given in CAT, you find that your reading speed dips low. And when your speed comes down, you will find that you are not able to attempt as many questions as you would like to. So reading speed is a critical element in reading comprehension. One way to work on that is to read a lot. So that is why we tell our students to do a lot of regular reading, especially a mainstream newspaper or some magazines, and to read as many diverse topics as possible. If one looks at cultivating an interest in only one particular area, that doesn't help somebody to prepare for the reading comprehension area. So one needs to do a lot of diverse reading for that area. The third section, which is the logic and data interpretation, there are 2 parts to it. The logic area asks you questions on puzzles. So somebody who does a lot of work on puzzles, somebody who solves Sudoku, etc., he would have developed the kind of thinking that would help one solve those kind of questions. So that's probably a puzzle book would be that much more recommended for preparation in that area. Now data interpretation is something that's easy in terms of the questions, but the difficult part is to understand the data and the manner in which it is presented. Students should try and ensure that whenever they look at a newspaper, try and understand especially those articles which have got data written in it. A financial newspaper like the Economic Times will probably be a very good idea in terms of understanding the different kinds of graphical representations that are possible. Now these are all the basic ways in which one can develop an aptitude and an interest in some of these sections. What we generally advise our students and what we would generally tell students is that going with any particular idea in mind with regards to CAT 2008 would be a problem. What could happen in CAT 2008 is anybody's guess. The best way to go about into this exam is to be prepared for, let's say, a 60 question paper with 20 questions in every section. You should also have a strategy in place for a paper which is extremely lengthy, has about 180 questions, 60 questions in every section. So keeping your mind open to all possibilities is probably the best way to go about preparing for CAT 2008. But then if you really want us to take a look at CAT 2008 and make a prediction, predictions are very difficult. But if you look at the pattern of CAT for the last 2 years, you would see that the verbal section is on the tougher side. And we expect CAT to be maintaining this trend for this year. But again, that depends on what kind of surprise they would spring on us. But going by the pattern of the last 2 years, the verbal section will be on the tougher side. That's because there were 5 choices in the last 2 years which made things a little difficult in that section. Quant and DI have been relatively easier over the last 2 years, relatively easier. So if there is a change this year, the sections might get a little tough this year. So this is what we could possibly say with regards to CAT 2008. But as I said again at the beginning, the best way to go into this exam is to go in with no particular notion about the exam. So when you have no particular notion about the exam, you are prepared for any kind of a surprise that they would throw at you.
That's all I have for you friends in today's episode. It's time now for me to wrap up today's show. For any further information or to give us your feedback and comments, you can log on to our website www.etvuvabharat.in. You can email us at yuvabharat@etv.co.in. You can even SMS us. Type 5B space your message, opinion or career inquiry and send it to 5600606. Before I take your leave, here is a lovely quote. Remember, the vow that binds itself too strictly snaps itself. Always remember that. Even I will remember to see you again. Bye-bye.